Welcome to the Legalpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Sager, and I'm dedicated to covering common legal issues for small business owners and just how some of the world's most elite entrepreneurs have handled legal issues themselves. In true attorney fashion, the information in this episode is not legal advice. This is for informational purposes only, and you should always consult with your attorney before implementing any of the information. Now, on to the show. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Legalpreneur Podcast. For those that don't know, I purchased a new business. It's a local business. It's actually a poker club. So I also own a poker club now, among the other things that I do. And I've just been swamped getting things situated there because I just took over. And I do have a partner, so it's like the two of us taking over and just trying to get things running smoothly, and it's taken a lot out of us. Basically, I feel like I've been living there, but it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love playing poker, and I just love being around the industry. So I saw this opportunity. I was like, heck yeah, get me in. So we've been dealing with this new business, and it's been very exhausting, but like I said, very fun. But this weekend, I finally got some much needed rest, time with my kiddos, and now I'm here chatting with you about the legal stuff. So the thing I want to talk to you right now about is contracts, and specifically, when do you not need a contract? When do you not need a written contract? Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And if you've been listening to the podcast or heard any of my webinars, follow me on social media, I'll be the first one to tell you that the whole purpose of a contract is to make sure that both parties understand the rights and duties of the other. Now, there are times where I don't think it makes sense to have a full-blown written contract. And what I mean by that is, the 5 to 10 page contract, laying out this, laying out that. It's just not always necessary. And number one, when I think that's not necessary is when you have in-person fitness classes. And I specifically, who I have in mind are my clients that are yoga teachers. Maybe they teach some type of fitness class. And if you have a membership, now, of course, they sign a contract with the membership, and it has all the terms and duties and rights in that contract. But if you have, let's say, pop-up classes, and it's not a membership, they just pay when they show up, then I don't think you need like a 5 or 10 page contract at that point, because it's just a one and done. Now, what I do think you need is still something for them to sign, like a waiver. And what I mean by a waiver is they waive their rights to sue you if they get hurt. They agree that, they're in good shape and can participate without getting hurt. If they get hurt, it's not your fault. Basically, relieving you of liability if something bad happens during the class. The whole reason for that is because if you have these quick pop-up classes, it's like, I don't want to bring this 5-page contract every single time and have them sign it every single time. So as long as they understand they're waiving their rights to certain things, I think that's completely fine. Now, the other situation, this comes up a lot with podcasters, is when you have guests on your podcast. I get the question all the time, should I have them sign a guest consent form? Well, you want to make sure your guests understand certain things, but you don't necessarily want them to sign, again, a 5 to 10 page contract. And for me personally, when I'm going to be a guest on somebody's podcast, I don't want to sit and read a 5 to 10 page contract. But again, there are certain things that you need to know. So what do? Well, hopefully you have a scheduler, something like Calendly or Acuity, somewhere where they're going to schedule their recording time. And in that, there's typically details or a description that you can put before they sign up. And that's where you put the essential terms. That's what I call them, the essential terms. So as a podcast host, then you would have, whatever you want them to understand, like, hey, this content can be repurposed for this purpose or that purpose or any purpose. And, by signing up for this recording, you agree to these terms. So they agree that you can repurpose the content. They're giving you their right to use their likeness for whatever purpose. Of course, you want to tell them, hey, make sure you use headphones, use a microphone, all the things that podcasters want the guests to know. For a lot of guests, if they're continuous guests on other show, these things are going to be obvious, they're going to be known, but there are guests that just do, shows every once in a while, or maybe it's their first time on a show and they need to know these terms. So as long as you have the essential terms in the description and the details of where they're signing up and they agree, you put, hey, by signing up for this recording, you agree to these terms. That's binding because they have to read it. They have to go through all of that before signing up. So now it's understood and it is binding. So those are the two main ways that I think you don't need a full-blown written contract. Now, when I say you don't need a full-blown written contract, you still need some terms. And you need to make sure both parties understand those terms. Again, fitness in the form of a waiver, podcasters, or if you're doing any type of guest trainings, you just want to make sure that's in the description and the details of when they schedule. Let me know if you guys have questions. There's more instances where you may not need a full-blown written contract, but you may still need some terms. And think about when you go purchase something at a store. You don't have a full-blown written contract, but there are terms that are understood. So think about that throughout the day. Like, hey, when I go do this or do that, is there a contract here? Just because you're not actually signing your name, just because you're not, going through HelloSign or DocuSign or saying, hey, I agree to these terms, there are still implied terms. So you don't always have to have a full-blown written contract in order to have terms that are binding. All right, you guys, that's it for this episode. I hope to see you guys next week on next week's episode of the Legalpreneur podcast. For now, make sure you're following along on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the things, and make sure to screenshot this episode, share it to your stories, and tag me to let me know what you liked most about this episode. All right, you guys, I'm out. Let me know if you have any questions. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could share it with a fellow business owner. And it doesn't cost anything to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. Your support helps me reach more listeners, which allows me to support more business owners in their entrepreneurial journey. I'll see you next episode.